Jeez.
Jeez. Well, we're going. Let's go.
Let's do it. Good morning.
Looks like we got a different background going on there. We got a new.
I've been doing some work to my office. Yeah.
Is this same location, just different background?
Same location, different backgrounds. Just trying to change it up for the people.
There you go.
How you doing? We're going to talk about, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about the thing. The thing. What was it we talked about last week again?
We talked about fitness last week, kind of dove in a little bit to some theory stuff, right? Like what we're trying to get out of what we do in the gym every day.
Yeah. And so that is what we are going to discuss today is the thing we do in the gym today, the thing that allows us to achieve what we talked about last week, which was achieve increased and improved fitness and health along with that. So we got Jens in the house. We got Brad. What's going on? So the thing is what, K-Bo? What are we going to talk about?
It's CrossFit. It's what we do.
It is our
what
thing.
It's all about. We're going to talk about what CrossFit actually is, which is I'm excited about because just like with anything over the years, things get watered down or new things come into the room with the definition. And before you know it, it's a little bit hazy and we forget what it was intended to be in the first place. So we're going to just revisit that. And I really think too, as coaches, it's important to understand it and know it so that you can communicate it and teach it a little bit better and more effectively to your people. So it'll be good.
Yeah. And hopefully overcome some of the static and some of the nonsense out there when people try to tell us what it should be or what it shouldn't be and what's wrong with it and all the rest of that stuff. So one of the best things about CrossFit is we like to define our terms, right? And so our program, CrossFit, has a true by the book definition. What is that definition?
We define CrossFit as constantly varied functional movement executed at high intensity.
All right. Constantly varied functional movements executed at high intensity. It's so fun. Like each one of these things is going to be so great to talk about because people criticize, I think, a little bit of all of them, which is interesting to me. We got Renee in the house. We got James. What's going on? So let's talk about, so real quick overview. If you've taken a level 1, we dive into each one of those different aspects of the definition. We typically start in the middle with the functional movements. Quick recap. What are functional movements? You don't have to give me all 6 descriptors and the one defining, but give me maybe 1 or 2 descriptors. What do we mean when we're talking about functional movements?
We're talking about movements that 1 or 2 descriptors, movements we see in everyday life, right? Like they're just natural to human movement. And then what's the big takeaway with functional movements? Like how do we determine if a movement is like functional by our definition?
Well, by our definition, it needs to produce high amounts of power. And we do that by moving large loads, long distances quickly. And so you mentioned functional movements being things seen in everyday life. So we talk about a squat. That's where you stand up from a seated position. A deadlift is where you pick something up off the ground. A press, you're putting something over your head on a shelf or something like that. When we think about a clean, you're taking something from the ground to your shoulders so you can put it in the back of the truck or in the top of the closet or things like that. I don't know if I want to start going there. I'll wait actually, I'll keep going. So there's things like the snatch. We don't see the snatch in everyday life. A handstand walk. I don't ever handstand walk in everyday life. Are those functional movements?
Yeah.
Why do we do those?
I'm just picturing you being like, I'm just going to handstand walk to the front of the room to greet this new member.
There may or may not have been times in my life where I was on vacation in certain locations and trying to learn how to handstand walk. I think those early CrossFit days, 2008, 2009, I'm trying to handstand everywhere and I could not barely do it.
Yeah. I definitely have pictures of me doing handstands. I think it's like the CrossFit rite of passage for a while. Like I have pictures of me doing handstands in various places in the world. Let's just say, where it's like, is it safe to do a handstand right there with that background? Because that would be really cool.
Yeah, right. Oh man, same. Except for I still can't really kick up and hold a position. So it's like there's a lot of pictures of one leg up and me falling out of a handstand or kicking towards a handstand. Very few of actually holding a handstand.
Just as she handstand walks everywhere. So maybe we are all so basic. Yeah. I mean, that's just same thing. We used to take pictures of the hands and everything. Anyways, we're getting off track here. So snatches, handstand walks, they aren't functional in the sense that we're going to see them in everyday life. But the development, what we develop by doing those movements, like the snatch, for example, we're going to develop a lot of different things with just that one movement, right? Like we're going to work on, we talked about it a little last week, like our 10 general physical skills. If we think about strength and power and flexibility and coordination, we're developing those things when we practice those movements. And we are also able to move large, long distances quickly and produce the power that we're looking for.
Yeah, I think of them as like money in the bank. It's like, yes, the functionality of something like a snatch, big picture. It's like, can I take something from the ground? Can I get it over my head? Well, you can do that with a clean and jerk. If I can do it with a snatch in the gym, I've probably, definitely can do it in real life with some sort of clean and jerk or something like that. Handstand walk. If I can support my body weight on my hands and move forward with this thing, I'm probably going to be able to press something up over my head. It's just money in the bank.
I love thinking about this snatch too. Yen says it has such a nice transition to everyday movements as it's designed to have that core to extremity for sure. Same thing. I know people like to hate on the sumo deadlift high pull, but man, that's not a great movement to teach people that core to extremity concept. But I also love to think of the snatch too as just a great, I talk about this at the level 1. It's such a great buffer to decrepitude, because if you think of our older athletes that are coming in, if they're able to snatch just even an unweighted barbell, even a PVC pipe, going from ground to overhead, and if they can go into an overhead squat after that full range of motion, and you think about them taking care of themselves in everyday life, being able to like get off the couch and walk up the stairs and get off the ground, if they're able to do that snatch, they're probably doing okay with a lot of the things we're demanding of them with their life. So it's really we could do a whole episode on the value of that movement, I think.
I love this. There's so many people are giving good examples here. Juan talking about the baby ground overhead right here, or the toss out of the pool.
Oh, baby. Yeah, like a literal baby.
Yes. I read that too. I was like, baby, wait a second. Oh, real baby going from the ground over our head. Yes.
That's so true.
Yeah. And then the stand-up paddleboard onto the roof rack. I mean, yes. Love it.
Yeah.
So good with all this stuff. So we've got an idea, kind of descriptive characteristics of functional movements, but let's talk a little bit more about those large loads, long distances quickly. Tell me about that a little bit more. What do you mean by large loads, long distances quickly? How does that produce power? What do we reference in there?
Are we talking about our power equation?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, when we're talking about large loads, like that's force, right? And so whatever the load happens to be, whether we're talking about our body weight or an external load, and it's the ability to move that load, get work done with that load, and whether we're doing it for repetitions or for distance, and our ability to do so quickly. So the time that it takes. So if we think about it in terms of the power equation that we use, a lot of you guys are familiar with that. It's just force times distance. So again, yep. And Stephen calls it there. So this is great. Well, force. Go ahead.
Divided by time, I think is what he meant to put.
Yes. Right. Force times distance over time. So divided by time is going to equal the average power output. And so we can plug in all these functional movements. We can start to plug in the load and the distance we travel, or the amount of reps, and how long it takes us to do so. And that gives us the power we're producing, which again, in turn, is how helps us define what functional movements are for us.
Yeah. And so we give comparisons at the level 1 where we're talking through that. So we typically we'll give the example of the air squat and how much power it can produce. And if you're lucky, maybe you got called to the front of the class if you're at your level 1 to do 60 seconds worth of air squats. But if you think about an air squat, you've got somebody that we usually reference, like somebody that's roughly 6 foot, 185 pounds. They squat down, their center of mass, which you can think of that as like where their belt buckle's at. It goes down 12 inches. It probably travels back up 12 inches. The down portion's gravity fed. So we're not counting that. We're counting the up portion of this thing. And then you think about how many reps that a given person can do in 60 seconds. You could probably realistically think that somebody can get somewhere between 40 to 60 or 70 reps with this thing. And so when we do the equation at the level 1, it's typically 60 reps. And when you do 185 pounds multiplied by 2 foot by 60 reps, and then you divide it by 1 minute, which is the time that it takes them to do that, we end up with 24,000 foot-pounds per minute. And so we argue that that's, 2/3 of a horsepower simply by doing air squats. And you reference something like a leg extension or a leg curl. And if you guys think about those machines where you're sitting on a bench, it always still blows my mind when I go to a traditional gym and they have seat belts on those. I never really knew why there's a seat belt on the leg extension machine.
Oh, like to strap yourself in?
Yeah, to make sure you don't fall out. Never know. But
it's for like if you're kipping it, maybe like a really hard hip, using hip extension. I've never noticed the seatbelt, but yeah,
it's just back in the old school days when I was more frequently. But it's like your legs are going to move roughly 12 inches, but you're not going to be able to move 185 pounds 60 times. And so just the reference between those two just expresses that, like, hey, a squat's going to be way more impactful than a leg extension or a hamstring curl. The argument isn't that those movements are completely useless and worthless and never should be done, and a calf raise doesn't generate as much power, so you shouldn't be doing that. The argument is that there's more bang for your buck in doing squats. And so people fall into the trap where they start to think that CrossFit just craps on every other movement and says you should never do these other things. And that's not what we're stating. It's just like, hey, I think of, I get my mom in the gym. If I get her in there 3 days a week, is there going to be more value for her 45 to 60 minutes in class of her doing squats and deadlifts or doing leg extension and calf raises?
Yeah. And I think about the rocks in the jar analogy that can be used for so many things. We use a lot for nutrition, but this is also a great opportunity to use that analogy too. If you have your jar, you fill it up with the rocks, and then you can put smaller rocks in, and then you can fill the remainder with the sand. But if you put the sand in first, then of course you're not going to be able to fit the larger rocks in. And so just think of these functional movements as the bigger, larger rocks. And then of course we can fill in the rest of the jar with some of these different movements. We just don't want to do the opposite. We don't want to prioritize these more isolation movements, smaller movements at the expense of then not training things like a squat or a deadlift.
Yeah. Yep. And you get plenty of bang for your buck with all of that. So I think functional movements and what's cool about this is, like, I think Coach really transformed the entire fitness space big time with the functional movement piece of this thing. Very few people argue that functional movements aren't where it's at. And most any fitness program that you look at anymore is like contains functional movements. Every program that programs for CrossFit or stuff that they say isn't CrossFit, they're still doing functional movements. So I love seeing that. Now that power equation is useful because it describes and illustrates how much power we produce with our functional movements and how we're able to move large loads, long distances quickly. But what else does that power equation do for us, Kristin?
It shows us intensity. Like it directly relates to the intensity that we're showing. Yeah. Is that what you were going for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's because power is exactly equal to intensity. That's how you define and determine intensity. And so when we say that we are a high intensity program, it falls in line with the movements that we do. When we are doing movements that produce high amounts of power, that means we're doing movements that produce high amounts of intensity. And so it is a high intensity program, just garnered and based on the fact that the movements that we do produce power. And like Omar says right here, the reason that's so darn important is because intensity is what gets us results. It's the fast track to results. What results specifically do we get from intensity, Kristin?
I mean, what results do you want to get from working out? I mean, name it. Do you want to lose body fat or gain more muscle? Increase health markers, maybe? Just look better, feel better? I mean,
Yeah,
name it.
it's the fast track. It's going to get you
Yeah.
whatever you want in the quickest, most efficient way possible. Now, I think this is where people start to get this thing confused is we say it's a high intensity program. And so the argument is that the workouts and the program on a daily basis shouldn't have people working to max intensity. And is that when we say high intensity, is that what we mean?
That people are going at 100% every single time? Is that what
Yeah.
you're asking? Yeah, no, no. And this is, I mean, man, this is a topic. This is a topic we could quite literally spend hours on, just going down that rabbit hole, just because of the misconceptions there on the high intensity. And so many people now are talking about like, oh, I'm just burned out from CrossFit. It was too much. It's too much. Like the workouts are too intense every day. And you don't have to be going at 100%. In fact, you shouldn't be doing it at 100% every single day in order for it to still have the intensity that we're looking for that's going to get us the results.
And we'll get into this in a second when we start talking about variance, which is going to lend itself to talking about programming. But like a program that actually does CrossFit is going to have variance in its program and programming and workouts, which means that not every day is going to allow for max and all out intensity. It's like the argument is like, hey, you shouldn't be laying on the ground about to pass out after every workout that you do. It shouldn't feel like Fran. And you're like, you're absolutely right. Not every day should be a 2-minute gas pedal down workout that's going to make you feel that way. And in fact, if there's variance in the program, well, there's two pieces to that. And Steven says it here, it's relative intensity. One, the longer the workout is. So if we go from like a 2-minute workout like Fran is to even like a 5K run, which is somewhere between probably 20 and 30 minutes for most people that do it in a gym, what just naturally happens the longer the time duration of the workout goes?
Your power output's a little lower, so therefore your intensity is a little bit lower.
Yeah. And like from 2 minutes to 25 or 30 minutes, it's a lot lower, right? So your intensity, just with the sake of variance in workouts, your intensity is going to be moderated by doing different style and different time duration workouts on a daily basis. So it's not going to be absolute like max intensity every single day. And also, like Steven says here, and we've had on the screen, we're talking about relative intensity. What do we mean by relative intensity?
Relative intensity just means that it's going to be relative, kind of like different for everybody. And we like to say that it's relative to each person's physical and psychological tolerances. So in other words, it's relative to, hey, not only what can your body handle, but what can your mind handle? Like, what are you feeling for that day? And it's just going to look different for everybody. I mean, I know my intensity level now, what's something that is enough intensity and high intensity for me is so different than 10 years ago when I was kind of at the peak of my training. And same thing, like I'm not going to walk in the gym and expect my mom, again, who's 72, to have exactly the same amount of like intensity as me. It's just going to look a little bit different for everybody.
Yeah, 100%. And so it's like you can't go gas pedal down every single class. You're not going to be able to do that and sustain that long term. Steven, if you see me in the room, you're dying for points. I will tell you right now, you can get all the points.
You're going to give them the points.
You don't have to die to get all the points from me.
Take the points.
Yeah, you can have all of those points. And James makes a good point here too, is like even intensity can be low. So you think about a day and you pull up something like CrossFit.com. It's like, say we've got Fran on one day, say we've got a 20-minute AMRAP on the next day. That's going to be showing varied intensity levels because of the time duration of the workout. And then you've got like 5x5 back squats. All of those days will feel very different. They'll have different outputs and intensity levels, and that should allow you to to consistently train and not feel like you're banging your head into the side of the wall the entire time. There has to be room upwards. Yeah, absolutely. And high intensity does not mean maximum intensity. There has to be room upwards. And I think that's the case. And we see it with our program. And that's why so many people continue to move upwards and get fitter and get better in fasted times.
So Todd, do you think if I come in on a daily basis consistently, and I consistently do about 60 to 70% intensity, I'll still have forward progression?
What do you mean by, so tell me more. It depends on what you mean by forward progression.
Like I'll still see results. I'll still see improvement. Like I'm not going to move backwards. What do you think?
It's going to depend on what your definition of results are. And I think this can be a challenging thing for a lot of people, because you made mention just a few minutes ago of like your ability to push the pedal down nowadays compared to where you were 10 years ago is very different. And so,
yeah, you know what my relative intensity has changed is my psychological tolerances a lot. Where, you know what I mean?
Yes, 100%. You don't feel like going into that pain cave every day. And with that, more than likely your physical tolerances have changed as well too, because you probably can't lift as much as you did. Correct. Or like run as fast as you could or any of that stuff. Not that it's a bad thing. And so when you ask me that question, can you still see progress? Well, if you are determining your progress based on your all-time PRs and you're looking at like your all-time PRs as a 25-year-old who pushed the gas pedal down and spent most of your time training, and now you're 40 something and you get into the gym 3 or 4 days a week for barely an hour and you enjoy it, but you don't feel like going to that pain cave. If you're determining your results based on your scores and you're comparing it to the 25-year-old self, then my answer is probably no, we're not going to see progress and results. If your new definition of results is, do I feel good? Are my health markers moving in the right direction? Then the answer is still yes. And that, in my mind, is where we're going for and what we're looking for. That's longevity, and that's what we want. But I think the tough thing for people to wrap their heads around is that you are not going to be able to continue to PR throughout your entire lifetime. There are people that continue to do so, but like, there's going to be a
sacrifice in order to continue to do so, right?
Well, there's going to be a point where life and time, catches up with us. Now, the crazy thing about this, let's see. Yeah, eventually it's inevitable for everyone. But if you're newer, pushing past 60% relative intensity, you'll plateau pretty quickly. If you never pushing past, if you're newer. Yeah, if you're never pushing past. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the idea with relative intensity. If you're pushing as hard as you can for that given day, you're going to be moving in the right direction. If you're pushing as hard as you can on that given day, you're going to be moving in the right direction. I want to say that twice because it's like, that's it. You just have to go based on how you feel that particular day. And I think you're going to be fine. I just mentioned that there's going to be some point where you're not going to continue to get fitter. But what's interesting is, and you just did a level 2 with this guy not too long ago, right? Was Ben Smith. I think I recently saw that he set a PR in his deadlift.
Yeah, like the week before the seminar. We talked about that a little bit because he's been doing it for like 20 years.
Yeah, he's been CrossFitting since he was 13, 14, 15 years old. He's a former CrossFit Games champion. He's now into his, mid 30s. He's got kids, he's got family, he's got different priorities, and he is still setting PRs. And I know he trains hard, but he'll probably tell you that he doesn't train as hard as he used to, but he's still getting better. So pretty darn impressive.
Which is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what we've got here with some of these mentions. I like this. It's all, if all I got is 80% for today, I'm giving 100% of that 80%. Yeah, I like that.
Give 80% 100% of the time. Can I do that?
I don't think that's what he's saying.
I know.
That might be where you're living right now. If I give 70%.
I'm fine with that. Look at Brad's comment, right? Oops, hold on. For aesthetic progress, pretty tough to see progress if you're, if we're talking like 60, if I'm only giving 60% every single time. But for general physical preparedness, you'll be fine and fully capable, right? It's like I'm still, I say but like you're still pushing that hedge against decrepitude. You're still like moving, you're still doing all the things. But yeah, I agree on this. It's like if you can,
I don't know, aesthetics. Like I don't know that your training intensity definitely matters there, but I think you can be at like 70%. But if your nutrition's really dialed, you're going to look fine, if that's what you're referencing, Brad. So I think like if you just want to train yourself into your aesthetics, then yes, you better.
there's plenty of people that aesthetically they're exactly where they want to be, and they're just really, really dialed in on their diet and going and doing like moderate things every single day. So
Yes.
yeah, that again, that's a whole other rabbit hole as well.
Yeah. So, all right. So we've talked about intensity. We've talked about relative intensity. We can kind of reference this again and dive back to it, but let's move to the other part of the program, which is constantly varied.
Mm-hmm.
What do we mean by that?
We are just trying to, if we think about our programming, the workouts of the day, the things that we do, essentially we're trying to vary up every conceivable factor. And everything we can think of, we want to consider a variable. So if you think about back to our power equation, right? Force, distance, time. If you think about the load, the movements you're doing, the amount of repetitions, how far you're going, how long you're working out, the equipment you're using, anything you can think of essentially is one of these variables that we want to change and we want to expose ourselves to. Because over time, again, this is not in 1 week, it's not in 1 month, but over time, the more we can expose ourselves to, the more capacity we'll gain. We call it pushing the margins of our experience further and further out, which then allows us to increase our overall fitness and be ready for anything that comes our way. So that's why we don't do the same workout every single day.
I don't know. What you just described sounds random. And I don't think randomness leads to results. I don't think you'll actually see any forward progress if you just continue to train so randomly. That sounds dumb.
Okay. It is varied, not random. Shout out to listen to that pod. That's such a great podcast. Boz and Pat Sherwood. And there's a reason that the podcast is named that, right? Varied, not random, because it's not random. It's not just throwing things at a wall and seeing what sticks. Although I would say that if you do that and your programming is really random, you're still likely going to see progress. But the idea of variance is that it's not random. There's some thought behind it. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? You've programmed for your gym.
I think the argument can be made is like, as long as there's a reason and there's a why behind it, it's not random. And you made mention of, you will see some people get some progress even with random workouts or a random program. And that's typically for somebody that's new to working out or to fitness or to strength and conditioning, where it's like they're going to see adaptations kind of regardless of what they do because they've not done much of anything. I remember, I think Joe Alexander was given a lecture at a level 2 one time around programming, and he was describing that this cohort of people that were so new. And he's like, yeah, you can get them juggling cantaloupes and they're going to see progress for the first, handful of months or years. And it's like, yeah, you're absolutely right, because they're brand new. I think the argument comes from people in the space that are like, hey, if you've got a longer time frame and you've got more experience and more strength and conditioning under your belt, there probably needs to be some more deliberate and the argument always is for like periodized, like deliberate training. And it's I just don't believe that is true. Now, if you are a specific sport specific athlete and you know when your game day is and you're going to do that specifically to peak for that game day, yeah, potentially so. But there's too many examples of people that train with good, varied, intentionally varied CrossFit that continue to see upward momentum and progress with their results in both strength and aerobic capacity and everything else. So let's see.
Yeah, I think of with variance versus randomness, the way that I like to think about it is that if it's completely random, then Eventually you're going to see, like, say that your program is completely random. There's really no thought. It's just like, let's just do different workouts every day.
There's an app on the phone. I don't know if it's still around. I'm sure where you can like shake it up and then it's
Yeah.
for you. Yeah.
Right. And there's no, it's just like, exactly. Over, let's say, a 6-month period of time, there are going to be some holes in that. That's just, it just is, right? And so whatever holes there are, you're not exposing yourself to. And so therefore, you're not going to get better at. So let's say you did a program completely random at the end of the 6 months. There really ended up being not a lot of longer, like slower workouts, maybe with a longer run or anything like that. Then it's no wonder that after about the 12-minute mark, all of your members are just hitting a wall and tanking because they're never getting exposed to like something a little bit longer. So I just think of with random, at a certain point, we're creating deficiencies or we're creating holes. Whereas with variance, while upon first glance, it can seem random, over that period of time, you're going to see that all those holes are plugged. Even though you may see some things more often than others, you're still casting that net and you're covering all of the bases so that you can continue to move your athlete forward in like all of the different time domains, all of the different modalities. Yeah. Anything to add to that, or should we just?
No, I like that. I think I like what you had up with Jens is the more advanced, the more intentionally varied the program needs to be. Intentionally varied. I love how he worded that. That's exactly, I agree with that completely. I like what Steven brings up here too. Does it have to be intentional in the programming or intentional in your movement? And I love this because this is an issue I see with so many athletes that are just concerned with their score on a daily basis, and they don't take the time to refine their mechanics. And this is also why it's so important for coaches to coach mechanics. If we are not doing our job of teaching, seeing, and correcting and improving somebody's movement patterns, there's going to be a ceiling. If you are the athlete that chicken wings every single one of your muscle ups, bar muscle ups or ring muscle ups, you are not going to get to a point where you're going to be efficient enough to have big enough sets to continue to improve. There's going to be a ceiling on your capacity if you never take the time to actually work on your technique. It's the same thing. It's like I've seen, athletes that never work on their positioning and their snatch or their clean, and they get to the point where it's like they max out. They're never going to be able to really push through that. Or if they do, it's a marginal improvement of like 1 or 2 pounds every 6 to 12 months. Whereas I see other athletes that really are intentional with their movement and work on their technique, and you see like huge breakthroughs in loads and things like that, where it's like a 10 pound, a 20 pound, 25 pound PR. I'm sure you've seen it as well. So I think, to Steven's question, if you're not intentional in your movement, either because that's who you are as an individual or because your coach makes you intentionally move better by continually coaching you and reinforcing those correct movement patterns, there's going to be a point where the programming doesn't matter very much. You can do the world's best quote unquote programming, but if you don't move well enough to do it right and to do it effectively and efficiently, it's just not going to work out the way you want it to. All right, I'll step off my soapbox as far as movement's concerned there.
I just wasn't listening. What happened? I agree. I was thinking about, I coached last night and we did the workout was little like it doesn't really matter what the workout was, but it had heavy sets of 3 deadlifts paired with running. And I was coaching this kid. He's a younger kid. I've never coached him before. And he's like loading up his deadlift. I'm like helping him with his form a little bit, but overall he looked pretty darn good. And then as it's getting heavier and heavier, he's really like almost like 3 rep maxing every time. And I initially I'm like, I'm going to have to get this kid to take weight off the bar. There's no way. His form was so good. Every time he'd be fighting through and he just looked so good. And even at the end, he came up, he's like, did you see my last rep? Was my back rounding at all? I'm like, no, dude, you looked awesome. And I'm just watching. I'm like, he is going to progress so well because he's young and he's so concerned about his form, but he's also really, really pushing the intensity. And he's just I'm excited for him because the fact he's that concerned about the technique but he's also going hard with his intensity. I mean, that is like that. Talk about the sweet spot. I was like, you were good. And trust me, I would have not let you lift had you not been good. And I was eagle eye focused on you. And I mean, I was impressed, and I'm excited for that. That's what this is all about. Like getting somebody to move like that while still pushing hard and being aware of their mechanics. Is awesome.
Yeah. Brad, I don't know if I agree with this 100%. I think depends on the timeline and how quickly I guess I can agree with certain results. If you are dead set on the only thing that you want is to increase your strength in a particular thing, or to increase your ability to do muscle ups or to run faster, and that's the only thing you're concerned with, then you probably should have specific programming for that. But if you want to generally increase your overall fitness, even if you want to increase your overall fitness quickly, I think you still need to have like specific variance as opposed to periodization. So it depends, I guess, on what you mean by certain results there with that. I think this reinforces what we talked about: move better, you'll move faster, and increase intensity. And the programming itself, having cool, fun workouts. We talked about this on the phone the other day. It's like, even if the workout is really, really quote unquote good and it's going to help improve your capacity, if the athletes don't like it and don't want to do it, or won't do it hard, or won't show up on that day, it's kind of irrelevant. So I think the program,
You're not going to get better if you don't show up.
If you don't show up, right?
It can be the best programming in the world, but if people aren't coming, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. So I think to the point of the program, like, I'll make the argument that the workouts don't really matter as much as your consistency and your mechanics. But if it's not enjoyable enough for people to keep showing up, it's not going to work. So I think that's where the value lies in your program. What else do we have in here? Volume. Yep. I like this. Coached all with purpose. Jens, 100 agree. What do we have here? Yesterday's cap workout, 1 rep max snatch. So many athletes spent 20 minutes working on mechanics in the squat snatch. If it was a PVC pipe, an empty barbell, show me good mechanics before you apply loading. And that's the same thing. It's like your ability to progress quicker is going to be highly dictated based on your mechanics. I'm sure anybody that's spent time working on their mechanics, especially in those Olympic lifts, have seen that pay off. All right. So here's something I'm curious to get your opinion about. When it comes to workouts and variance, you made mention that we want to vary as many different things, vary as many variables as possible: the equipment, the movements, the time durations, the loads, any and all of that stuff. I find that people start getting really into CrossFit. Maybe they like the open, they want to compete, and they start looking at certain things and they're like, all right, in order to get fit or be good at CrossFit, I need to do thrusters, and I need to do it at 95 pounds if I'm a guy and be really good at that. Maybe 135 for the open. I need to be able to snatch 135 and clean and jerk 135 pretty easy and get up towards X numbers. I need to be able to do muscle ups and chest to bar pull-ups. And then all of a sudden they start looking at a workout that maybe provides variance. We did one a couple of weeks ago that had single unders in it. It was like a 20-minute AMRAP. I think it had 10 push-ups, 20 regular sit-ups, ab mat sit-ups, 30 jumping lunges, and 40 single unders. And you did it for 20 minutes. And I heard the rumblings and saw the folks that are like, I don't need to do this one. I'm going to go and grab a barbell and do thrusters, or I'm going to do GHD sit-ups, or I'm going to do weighted ab mat sit-ups and I've got to do double under because this just isn't intense enough. This isn't a hard enough workout. What do you say to somebody who thinks like that?
Like what do I say to them?
Yeah. Or what's your thought process on that? Do you agree with that? Do you is there value in doing those workouts, or single?
There's value in doing them.
To ever do those if you want to compete, or not even at like a high level, but even at a local level?
I mean, it just depends on who the person is, but there's 100% value in doing those things. And again, like if they understand the concept of variance, and it's like if we aren't exposing ourselves to certain things, we're going to lose the capacity to do them. What did you have a bunch of people who were like, this is dumb?
Not a bunch of people. There's the handful of people there like, yeah, I'm going to do my own thing today. And then
yeah. I also think that if we can, I don't think this is the answer you're looking for, but this is where my brain goes. If we can show them the value of even the class, like if we can still coach it really well and give them value for that hour that they're with us and still coach the movements that seem simple, it just over time, I think that a lot of the athletes aren't necessarily going to jump to that because it's like, whatever. I know that's not the answer for like that day, what you would tell them. But yeah, I usually just try to explain a little bit about, what the deal is, what we're doing, why we're doing it. But I don't go into that too often, to be honest. Like that's not my go-to. Like all the stuff we're talking about right now, I think is super important to know as coaches, but rarely is it my go-to to explain people like the concept of relative intensity or whatever, Yeah. I'm just kind of like, come on, like
it's your fitness, right? We've got to say,
yeah,
it's your fitness. If you think that you need to always do, GHD sit-ups, as long as they've got the capacity, obviously I'm not going to let them do something that's unsafe for them. It's like, all right, just don't complain when it's like, you're only doing this small set of movements now and these certain sets of like time durations and things like that, because you more than likely, I think it's a lot of times people are like, this is just what I like the best. I don't want to show up on the day where we've got an 800-meter run buy-in and then we do whatever, because I don't freaking like that. I would much rather, do a bunch of muscle ups and handstand push-ups because I feel cool doing those. And I think there's value in that. And I see that because I think I was one of those athletes when it's like, I achieved this new skill. I want to do that more. But I think the more seasoned you get in the program, you're like, there's value in everything that we do, in every movement that we try, in every version of this thing.
To your point, people need to enjoy it. And this is one of the things we talk about with coaching a good class. Like it just has to be fun. And so if you have a plan for how you're going to coach it and you make it fun and engaging, and you talk to people about like, hey, just because it's single unders doesn't mean that this isn't going to be hard and your sets need to be bigger. Like just give them, I think Omar mentioned it up there a little bit. Yeah. Giving them a goal to get them to push their intensity, talking about, what the stimulus is, like all of those things can help, I think, to push people a little bit more and to have them just buy into whatever the workout is. I'm going to do it. But I just agree. At the end of the day, if someone's like, I really don't want to do this, then I'm like, all right, like it's your hour. If you don't want to do it, I'm not going to force you to do it. I'll encourage you and like try to get you to do it and give you a little bit of a reason why if you want. But yeah, I don't know if that's the way to go or not, but
yeah,
at the end of the day, it's like, you just want people to continue to come in and have fun. And it's like, if they're in there, I'd rather they be in there and be like, I really want to do double unders versus single unders than them skip the workout and not come in.
Yeah, I'm with you there. There's some good points in all of this stuff in the comments here. Renee talking about if you aren't consistently coming up as number one in your class's leaderboard and doing the movements RX, you don't need more, right? You don't need to do something different unless you can win like hands down every single workout. Kristin, I agree with you. People complaining less when they're having fun and getting better. I do think it's funny though. People lose perception of how much better they're getting. You know what I mean?
Like they don't realize they're getting better, or they think they're getting better and they're not. Maybe both.
Or yeah, I think more so they lose perception of they're getting better, but they don't think they are good enough.
Yes. Yes. Well, and then that brings us even to the whole argument of like people thinking they need more and they need more volume because they're not improving. And it's like, you are improving and you don't need more volume. And I could even argue that if you give yourself more volume, you're going to hit a plateau and not improve more than you would. It's just like it's a it's, what do we call it? Like a long trajectory to a distant path or whatever, where it's like
Low trajectory to
low
this.
trajectory to,
Yeah, yeah.
yes. It's like, this is a long, all of this like long-term goals, right? And it is hard. It is hard to see the tiny little baby steps you're making. It's hard to see that, but that's part of the reason why we're there to show them that and to tell them that and to remind them, like, hey, this time last year you couldn't even string 3 double unders together, and now every time we have double unders in a workout, you're crushing it. So this is a really great opportunity for you to make sure you don't lose your single unders and just practice that skill, because you're crushing them with the double unders. Like, we got to go back and forth between the two if you want to continue to push yourself forward, whatever.
Yeah. And Brad brings this up, and I think this is a good segue into this, is like, hey, speaking of mechanics, CrossFit is prepping us for life. And in life, we rarely ever lift a perfectly symmetrical object with perfect form. How do you
Fair point.
balance life outside the gym with form in the gym?
Love it.
Well, one, I think this is where variance comes into play. It's like, hey, do dumbbell work, do kettlebell work, grab some sandbags if you guys have that stuff, do some different things. I've been dealing with like a shoulder tweak, and so last week in the programming, we kind of loosely follow cat was some thrusters, and I wasn't going to do thrusters to potentially risk tweaking my shoulder again. So I did Zercher squats for that as my squatting this thing. And I don't think I'd done them before, but not ever for like truly heavy load and in that environment. And it was so different and challenging and fun to do something different. And it's like, all right, cool. That's what variance does for us, is it exposes us to different things and it prepares us for life. Now, for this, just because in life do we rarely ever get to pick things up with perfect form, it doesn't mean that I'm going to let somebody lift with bad technique in the gym. I'm just going to expose them to more things and teach them positions and make them strong enough to where when they do have to pick up that, couch when they're moving, they should be strong enough to be able to do so in a way that's safe, even if it's not with a perfectly neutral spine or something like that.
Right, because we're still looking for like the overall themes of things, right? If we can teach people how to move their body well while under load, that's going to transfer over, hopefully, without them even being super conscious about it, because we're doing it time and time and time again. Push your knees out, drive your knees out, push your knees out, rock back on your heels. Doing that and getting them in those movements over and over and over again. My hope is that then when they go out and they do have to lift the couch, it's like they're still pushing their knees out. They're still trying to like get rooted in the heels. And those things transfer over if we continue to just drive them home with the stuff that we're doing in the gym every day.
Yeah. Brad, I like this. When the goal of the workout is to get better at the sport side of fitness, is that in true spirit of CrossFit? Any workout prepares you, it prepares you for life in some way, which makes all programmed workouts good. So that second statement there is my point with like, I don't really believe there's such thing as a bad workout or a dumb workout or an easy workout. It's all in how you approach it and how you do it. Now, if you've got goals that are specific to the sport side of CrossFit, I think that still falls in line with CrossFit, but it doesn't necessarily fall in line with our ultimate goal of like a broad, general, and inclusive fitness and just being generally physically prepared. We are now focusing our attention on that sport version of this thing. And so whether that's a local competition or competing at a bigger level, you're no longer simply training for GPP. You're now training for a certain event, whether it's that competition or whether it's the open or whatever it is. And so,
which can still be in the spirit of CrossFit.
Yes. Still in the spirit of CrossFit, but
it's just different. The goals are different. I think we just need to call it like it is. Like the goals of someone training to get better on the sports side of fitness, that's their goal. And the goal of the people, the moms and average member that we have in our gym, that's not their goal. Their goal is to just be prepared for life, like their job or, taking care of their kids or whatever. But I think with everything, we can say it's still not with everybody, but like the spirit of CrossFit can still be there. Just the goals are different.
Let's see. We got Jess. 100% coordination is a necessary physical skill. Changing the movements is necessary to maintain that. Like, there is so much value in our brain health in doing different things and trying to continually learn new movements. If we just do what, like, obviously there's a huge spectrum of movements that we do in CrossFit, but if we only do the ones that we've ever seen in competition in the open or in even the games, you're going to be missing out, and you're going to be losing out on some adaptation by just trying to do different things. Jens,
well, right. Yes. Go ahead. Yeah. I'm just agreeing. I'm agreeing. Yeah.
Okay. Jens, volume is part of the program from time to time as well. And so, yeah, the argument that it's like, no, you only need to do one thing and that should be your workout every single day, I think that's incorrect as well. It's like, yeah, sometimes a high volume and doing 2 pieces and maybe even 3 pieces to a single 60-minute session, or maybe doing 2 different sessions in the same day at different times. You come to the gym in the morning and then you run 3 miles in the evening. Like, that's all appropriate. That's all part of it. That's perfectly fine.
But to just point out one additional thing from this comment is that at the end of his comment, he says from time to time, not every single day. It's just from time to time. That's variance.
Yeah. Brad, the fun part is programming to fit both those demographics in a community and gym. It is fun. It is also challenging. And I will tell you, ultimately, the more people you have in your gym, the less likely you are to make them all happy, because you can never make everybody happy, and it's okay. You know what I mean? Like, it's perfectly fine if somebody doesn't like the way we do things, or they don't like a particular workout. Like, that's their prerogative. That's okay. You're just not going to make everybody happy. And when you try to, I think that's when you end up kind of lost and things get tough.
There's a lot of gyms, though, that their competitors, we'll call them competitors, the ones training for the fitness side, the strategy, and it works really well for a lot of gyms, is they take the workout of the day with the class, and then they just either are there before or after, or do a second session and do more of the work that they like to do. But they're still taking the workout every day with the class, and that is a part of their programming. And I think that can work really well.
And I think that's why there's value in, like, you know, when it comes to programming, still programming and making sure that you are including a lot of the high skill stuff in your classes on occasion, rather than just being like, well, we don't have anybody that has muscle ups, so we just don't program those. It's like, well, guess what? I can guarantee you, if you don't have anybody that has muscle ups and you don't ever practice muscle ups, you're never going to get muscle ups. So putting some of that stuff into the equation, so those people that want to do CrossFit at a different level or sport specific or higher level, they're still going to be getting some access there and getting some coaches.
Brad says, when I say it's fun, I mean incredibly challenging. Yeah.
But relative term. Yes.
That's okay. Also, we've got to have challenges for things to be fun, right?
Yes, exactly. It's so funny. Yeah. It's such an interesting thing. And thanks for the shout out, Jen. I love seeing this. I don't even know what we said. I don't remember exactly.
You blacked out.
Yeah, I blacked out. I'm sure I just got fired up and blacked out. So constantly varied functional movements performed at high intensity. What would you say is the most important part of that? Or what is the biggest takeaway from that definition? What do people need to know?
Oh, I don't know.
Oof.
I don't know. I feel like you're leading me to an answer, and I don't know what the answer is. What's the most important thing about
What's
that?
the defining characteristic? It's large loads. You should have known.
I mean, I just think the most important thing is, like, hey, show up, work hard, do it well, and you'll be good to go. You know, it's like, do something different, do something different every day, work hard while you do it, move well, scale when you need to, so that you can hit the intensity that the workout is intended, which, you know, it might not look like some of the other athletes in your gym at the 100%, but if you're working towards your own intensity, we said we're going to continue to get the results that we're looking for. Yeah. that's more of like a summary. What's your big takeaway from it?
Oh man, extra sloppy. I like what he added right here. Functional movements, a rolling stone gathers no moss. It's like, and I also think of this almost the same as like a snowball going down the hills, going to gather more size. It's like, just keep showing up. Quit getting so caught up in the minute details of this thing. Realize that when you come in, you move well, you work hard, and you show up time and time again, it's going to work out. I've never seen it not work out. So keep doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we all love to overthink everything, right? Overanalyze, overthink. And at the end of the day, I mean, this CrossFit's one of those things that when it first started, it's like, oh, this is a fad. This is a fad. And I think it's proven itself over and over again that it's not a fad. And if, we really look at the fact that it's like, these are movements we do in the gym, or movements that we're doing all of the time, every day in life, in sport, the functional movements. And if we do them well and we try hard and we show up, then we're going to continue to see what we want to see from the program, which is all the results we were looking for. Really that simple, guys. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
There's some good stuff in the chat here.
Yeah, I think everybody's all in line with like the movement, functional movements are the priority in this thing. And that's, I said it at the very beginning, that all the programs out there, like one of the biggest changes that Coach and CrossFit made is that you go into any gym, not only CrossFit gyms, any functional fitness gyms, any traditional gyms, and you see way more functional movements. People are squatting pretty close to depth, if not, to depth, right? It's like very rarely.
Almost, yeah, but still much better than it was happening 15 years ago, right? Where you're going like 3 inches down and standing.
Yeah, and like people are deadlifting, people are cleaning, like all of that stuff is happening in the functional movements. Just the power that they contain is crazy, and so super valuable. And I think another big takeaway with everybody saying this, functional movements, then high intensity, then variance, is like, in general, I think we as human beings need to move more, period. So it's fantastic that we get a chance to go to the gym and we, do our CrossFit class for 60 minutes, ideally 3 to 6 times a week. But I also think we're missing the point if we think that that is enough, or if we think that some certain program is going to help us over the long haul. It's like, we need to continue to move as much as we can, go for walks, ride your bike, sit in the bottom of a squat, try to get on your hands, whatever you can possibly do. Just keep showing up, keep moving as much as you can in the gym and outside of the gym. Let me see. What do we have here? I feel that affiliate programming made it easy for the owner, but it made the quality of coaching worse. So many coaches just coach the notes. Yeah, Isaac, I'm with you there. And that's, why we're pushing hard to put out more resources and content to you guys, just to understand the concept of I think it's the teaching scene and correcting that we still just continue to need to get better at. Now, that being said, I think these affiliate programming like Mayhem, Proven, all of CAP, everything that's out there, if I think back to what I experienced in 2007, 8, 9, 10, where there were no class notes, there were no programs, there were none of that stuff. Coaches were just figuring it out on the fly. Nowadays, at least there's a structured 60-minute session to where there's timestamps on what can be done. And most all those programs have some sort of teaching progression for coaches that don't know that stuff. So it's like, I think we're better off with all of these programs than we were back in the day. But I do think that there still needs to be something beyond just following the notes. You've got to have the knowledge behind what you're actually saying and be able to see and correct there. Any thoughts on that, Kristin?
Yeah, I think there's some strategies that we can employ too if we're using that programming. It's like, maybe once a week you have a different coach write up a different lesson plan for workouts. Maybe you don't. There's different things to do that's going to dig into it a little bit more. Maybe you change it up a little bit and remove an element to add in 5 more minutes to the class, so that the goal with that class is for your coach to add a little bit more meet to one of the progressions. I mean, you can use the programming as the base and still change it up a little bit depending on what your goals are and what your team is working on. And I think that both can happen. Like, I absolutely get that the more there is to fit in the hour, the harder it's going to be to give your athletes that quality coaching. You don't have a lot of time. But if you're thoughtful about it and give maybe some specific goals each week, or again, maybe you just do a full week where it's like, hey, we're going to use the programming, but we're not using the lesson plan that they've provided us. And this week, everybody's going to write their own lesson plan. You don't have to do that all the time, but maybe like once a month, it's like coaches do the lesson plan week. And it just a little bit at a time will just help expose the coaches to some more skill that's needed. So you're not just coaching to the notes every single class. So it's almost like using the guidance of those prepared plans to help develop, but then also knowing, okay, now it's become a crutch and it's hindering our progress and our growth as coaches. So let's remove the crutch for a little while and just kind of practice without it. That's just one thought that perhaps people can try to do. Yeah.
Love it.
We're going to talk more about programming next week.
Yeah. We'll talk about programming, CrossFit workouts, how to write them, and revisit some journal articles. I have a feeling. But with that, if you guys want more of this content, the Knowledge Pro, the Knowledge is a one-stop shop for any and everything coaching wise. And then get this, Kristin, I don't know if you heard this yet, but if you sign up for Affiliate University between now and the end of August, you get a free coaching credential. So if you want to get your level 1, your level 2, your level 3, or get one of your coaches one of those, you guys are going to get one of those. And then the other thing that's going to happen is, drum roll please, your affiliate's going to get entered into a drawing to where you can get your affiliate fees paid for a year. It's pretty darn awesome. Cool. Yeah. So not only
not a bad price.
Yeah, not a bad prize. Well, you get leveled up coaching wise, and all your coaches will get access to our coach development program. But you'll also get a chance at a free credential, or you will get a free credential and a chance at your affiliate fees. So make sure you guys get signed up. Cabo, as always, it was a pleasure. We look forward to chatting again next week.
All right. See everybody next week.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you for checking out this episode of the Best Hour of Their Day podcast. Now, if you're a coach who wants to coach more effectively, impact your members, and advance your career, then the Knowledge Pro is the next step. Inside, you'll get hundreds of coaching videos, weekly calls with level 4 coaches, and direct feedback on your coaching. From homework reviews to full class breakdowns, we do it all. This is the best way to grow as a coach and take your skills to the next level. Now, you can join the Knowledge Pro at besthouroftheirday.com/the-knowledge. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. Now keep coaching, keep improving, and we'll see you next time.